appreciate that. Thanks everyone for joining us. We have an exciting panel for you today. This is, as a lot of you know, as a lot of you might not know, this is actually our third annual Smart Region Summit that we have this year decided to combine with ASU and their ShapingEDU program. And we've humorously nicknamed it the Winter Games. It's our attempt to be a little bit of funny and play on the fact that the Olympics have got pushed out for a little bit. So thank you for joining for our own games. And it's sure to be fun. So this panel, as all of you probably already know, is all about breaking down digital barriers in smart cities. Digital equity might be one of the biggest issues that I seem to run into in my day-to-day business. And it's one of the biggest issues on top of every city leader's, CIOs, CISOs mind today. And so I'm excited to bring to you this amazing panel, which I'm going to have them all introduce themselves in just a little bit. But my name, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Dominic. I'm the Vice President for the Smart State Initiatives at Arizona Commerce Authority. And Di, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and to our panelist, Eric, who is participating from Seoul at 2:30 in the morning. A very good early morning to you. I am Di Bowman. I'm an Associate Dean and Professor at ASU Law. I'm also the Co-Director for the Center of Smart Cities and Regions, and I have been the ASU lead in building out a smart region here in the Greater Phoenix region, and delighted to be here, and thank you all for participating this morning.
Fantastic. Thanks, Di. So before I jump into the introduction, just a little bit of numbers so you can kind of see the breadth of the participants in the Winter Games over the course of the next 3 days. It's truly amazing. You know, I think that number has actually gone up tremendously in the last day. That's with 80 different people presenting, over 60 activities, 60 plus activities. So if you can't find what you're looking for, search around, email us, we'll help you find what you need. But we all know that it's difficult to attend all of these over the 3 days. And we're recording all of the sessions, and we'll be playing them back online for people to access the ones they couldn't make. So don't worry if you miss a session, we're recording all of them and we'll be presenting them back once they're recorded. And just so you know, I think this last number is pretty amazing. Over 6 continents represented in these 3 days. So truly amazing. And of course, we wouldn't be here without the generous support from our sponsors. Thank you, Cox University Technology Office, and of course, the Connective, which includes our great partners like Dell Technologies, who's represented through Rob on the panel today. So I'll end the slides there. I'll stop talking, and I'll let my panelists introduce themselves. So Bianca, I'll turn it over to you first.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bianca Laffey. I'm the Assistant CIO for the City of Phoenix. I'm actually representing our CIO who couldn't be here today, Matt Arve. I joined Matt's team a little over 1.5 years ago. My previous background has been in K-12, so I've been a CIO for a public school district previously. And I'm really, really excited to be here with all of you today and to continue leading the digital transformation for our great City of Phoenix.
Fantastic. Rob, how about over to you?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Dominic. Hi, everyone. Rob Silverberg with Dell Technologies. My title is Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer for our state and local government team. I've been with Dell for over 17 years, and for the last 5 years, I've been focused on our smart city strategy. We call this strategy digital communities because it's more about digital transformation, and it also is about cities, counties, state agencies, and the ability to improve the way they operate.
You're right. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Eric, CEO of Dot. Dot is a startup founded at 2015. And since then, our company made the world's first Braille smartwatch and the world's first tactile display like iPad for the first time in history to make graphics and visual contents accessible for 100 million blind people around the globe. From 2018 at Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in South Korea, we focused on making inclusive smart cities through our technology and a smart barrier-free infrastructure technology that we are making for everyone. With our system, there are no discrimination in accessing any kind of public information. For example, like we bring universal designs such as automatic screen height adjustment technology for the physically impaired people and the most latest like Braille and tactile display and high contrast screen with a sound TTS information system for the visually impaired people, and like AI-based sign language for the hearing impaired people, AI-based voice command system for elderly people and non-disabled people, includes foreigners. We support 13 languages in our systems. As you can see, I put as a background that we installed yesterday in one of the stations in South Korea. You can see the physically impaired people accessing the public information in the subway station. So at this moment, we are putting this technology on the barrier-free smart kiosk and navigation apps in smart cities. So customers can access any kind of public information like navigation, payment, booking, or getting alerts in the most accessible way. So for literally every people, even if you have a disabilities. So we are like this, we are putting in subway station in South Korea, and we're putting in Dubai and some countries in Middle East, like UAE and Qatar. And recently we made a MOU with ASU, and we made an entity just 7 days ago in Phoenix. So we would like to bring this latest technology soon in Phoenix to make the city more inclusive. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I'm sure we'll deep dive into that a little bit. And I apologize, it wouldn't be a digital equity, digital access panel if I wasn't having connectivity issues, right? Of course, this is, I think it highlights what we're all going to talk about. So I apologize, Rob, for that earlier. And then Joseph, I believe you joined us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you, Dominic. My name is Joe Flynn. I'm the Public Sector Chief Technology Officer for Boomi, a Dell Technologies company. We are one of the strategically aligned businesses within the Dell portfolio of products. Our focus is integration platform and bringing all applications and data together, regardless of the platform, including IoT sensors and IoT gateways and legacy and modern cloud and on-prem assets. Been with Dell 10 years now. I used to run the public sector business in the New England region and had a long career in academia prior to that in university.
Oh, fantastic, Joe. Sounds like you and Di are going to hit it off. Oh, and Bianca too, right? The academic side of the house. So Bianca, let's turn to you and let's talk about the city of Phoenix experience from COVID. So, you know, when COVID first hit, what barriers and challenges became immediately apparent to the city in relation to kind of access to city resources, remote learning, and how did kind of you and your team respond from the city's perspective?
Yeah, no, thank you, Dominic. So as the fifth largest city in the country, it was clear for us that our most vulnerable residents needed access to social services immediately. You know, immense hardship for some of our communities. The key was really providing solutions so the city could still receive the same information from our residents when in-person employments were no longer an option. So we're talking about housing, grants. So we introduced a digital technology solution so our community and residents could use e-signatures and electronically sign sensitive documents to caseworkers from a safe distance. So this reduced the needs of them coming in person, so protecting both our residents and our employees. This digital system helped our residents submit grant requests for relief with housing and utility bills, as well as for small businesses who are now able to apply for those much needed grants. And also we're able to complete this process in much faster ways than ever before. Of course, we ensure that the system is secure and that those files met all security requirements concerning our residents' PII information, so protecting their identity and their information. We're also engrossed in the need for to protect another and support another vulnerable demographic during this pandemic, our students. So as we know, many of our local students remain closed. We expanded our Wi-Fi coverage outside of the more than 50 libraries, community, senior, and recreation centers, ensuring that our students had internet access during this time. Our teams also provided approximately, so through this effort, we were able to provide approximately 32 million square feet of additional exterior Wi-Fi coverage. And we also developed an app where our community members can locate their nearest public center or public library where they can go and take advantage of this Wi-Fi opportunity. Another effort, part of closing the digital divide, the city also provided through grant funding and other funds about 800 tablets with hotspots that included a paid 2-year data plan for students in public housing. And we continue to explore partnerships and strategies to address this digital divide. Another effort is currently underway is having about 400 mobile devices available for checkout from our public libraries. So really closing the digital divide, the need, right, increased, and our efforts had to be expedited. And we are looking at ways to partner and also really use those funds wisely so we can relieve some of the hardship from our community and ensure that our students have the devices and Wi-Fi capabilities they need. Another way we were able to respond to this crisis, we partnered with our public works department to upgrade technology of about 15 human services department senior centers. So we're able to enhance network capability to include Wi-Fi in those facilities. And in December, we had about 50 laptops for residents to borrow while on site. So we were able to respond to an additional group that had those kind of needs. And now we're expanding the devices for other senior centers as well. And another accomplishment that our CIO had in last year was provisioning laptops and VPN connections for our remote workers, which kept our enterprise running during the lockdown. I'm sure as other organizations, that was one of our efforts to ensure that our employees can work remotely, they can telework, and they're able to do so from home. So Matt, our CIO, managed to support thousands of our employees being set up remotely in just a few weeks, which is an amazing accomplishment. And I think our response to the crisis showed that the critical importance of technology to the business, not just operations, as maybe previously seen. So we're able to support those critical business processes by facilitating this remote work, so digital workspace, digital engagement of our employees as well, and of course our community.
That's an impressive lift given the size of the city of Phoenix being one of the largest cities in the United States. I'd like to pivot now over to Eric, who I had the pleasure of meeting approximately 6 or 7 weeks ago. And Eric, I would love for you to talk a little bit about the inspiration behind your company and the invention and what you're rolling out in South Korea.
Thank you, Diana. Like 3 years ago, we realized that we need to develop some new infrastructures, like smart infrastructures for the disabled people in smart city, because old infrastructures doesn't support those population very well. For example, in the US alone, every year, there are more than 10,000 Americans with Disability Act lawsuit case because disabled people cannot access public information in public places. So we were the company who developed like assistive technology for blind and hearing impaired people. We wanted to bring this technology to the infrastructures. And we tested this from 3 years ago at Pyeongchang Olympic, and it was very successful. Like you see on my back screen, a lot of disabled people is very, very supportive, and organizations are very, very supportive about this smart technology. For example, if you are a blind person on our system, you can check tactile maps in this tactile screen for the first time in history. So they can see map, they can access maps for the first time. So like this kind of our first approach got a lot of support in South Korea and some Middle East countries. So I really, since I studied in the US in Seattle, but I want to bring this technology in Arizona State. I met Diana luckily a few weeks ago, and Arizona State has a strong will to make a smart city more inclusive, and we want to be on part of it.
fantastic. And we're looking forward to actually rolling out and starting to pilot on our campuses and in that region. And Eric, we're delighted that you're coming into the Greater Phoenix region, given that when we think about smart cities, it's really about quality of life and improving access for all. I want to now pivot over to you, Rob. I know Rob and Joseph have been very patient with us. There's so much to talk about and so little time. Rob, you work with communities all over the country. What else are you seeing? And are there some unique challenges to smaller communities that are really, being highlighted during the pandemic?
Yeah, I wanted to highlight a project that we've been working on recently with the city of Tucson related to digital divide and some of the challenges there. So Tucson's right down the road, of course, from you guys in Phoenix. They have some interesting challenges in that they have some very disadvantaged neighborhoods that don't have connectivity. So as the pandemic hit the city of Tucson, many of these areas of the city, approximately 70 square miles, was not able to access remote school, remote work, no internet connectivity. So the city was looking for ways to solve the digital divide problem. As they looked at typical Wi-Fi hotspots, they realized that because the region was so large, 70 square miles, that they would need to deploy approximately 20,000 Wi-Fi hotspots, which was not practical for them to deploy and maintain. So they looked at different technologies, and we helped them actually find one of our partners that provides private wireless, private 5G wireless. So in looking at covering that same region with connectivity, the city decided to use CBRS technology, essentially a new band of 5G, which could cover that 70 square mile area with only 80 hotspots, each hotspot covering approximately a square mile. So we worked with the city, with our partner JMA Wireless, to deploy the solution for connectivity. The testing went very, very well. Inside the smaller ring, the 5G ring, they were getting up to 100 megabyte connection speed. And in the wider ring, which is the square mile 4G coverage, they were able to get up to 50 megabytes of connectivity using this new technology. So the city is very excited about it. It's also highly secure in that the devices that convert the 5G to Wi-Fi require a special SIM card issued by the city, so they can control who has access to this connectivity network. So this project, I think, is very, very innovative. One of the first cities to roll out private wireless, private 5G, and they've deployed 40 hotspots so far, covering 40 square miles approximately. And they're looking to deploy another 40 hotspots going into early 2021, bringing much needed connectivity to disadvantaged neighborhoods. So solving the digital divide is possible. There are new technologies out there, leveraging 5G, leveraging CBRS, and we're happy to be helping to support those sorts of initiatives. I have other examples, but I'll let other people talk for a while.
I think Dominic is still frozen, so I'm sorry you're having to hear from me more than anybody would have liked. Joseph, I'd love to turn this over to you, and you've also been in the thick of this. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing, where best practices, successes and failures, and what really is going to be the next step for you and your company?
Yeah, so a lot of what we're seeing is, as the pandemic has gone on, is this need to have access to data wherever you are. And I think Bianca kind of said it about how do you provide digital services to people, or services at all to people, when you no longer have a retail storefront or office to be able to live in, be it motor vehicle or licensing or any of that, or pay your taxes, et cetera. So the acceleration towards digital has been really significant. And one of the reasons we think about this is that it's pervasively the only way to get that work done now, but it's also safer. If you're able to do things in a digital way, from a health perspective, it's a safer way to do it. When we looked at some of the customers we've been working with during the response, several things really came to mind. One was the challenges of legacy infrastructure and applications within this model, and how do you actually bring modern technologies that would really enable these digital services to the forefront if you can't get your legacy debt and your legacy applications either modernized or integrated into a modern platform, allowing you to kind of maintain your status quo, yet at the same time start to migrate forward. The other thing we've seen that's not necessarily pandemic based, but certainly when you talk about smart cities, is the explosive growth of data and where data is coming from, and how do you actually take that explosion of data that's happening and bring it into your systems, either for analytics purposes or for transaction processing service systems, as an example, even from your edge gateways and your sensors that are out there. And the idea of pushing your edge as close to those sensors as possible is there to try to accelerate those and get rid of some of the latencies and lags in your systems. So what Boomi does, it really allows you to take these legacy systems, connect them and integrate them all with your new modern systems, both on-prem, in the cloud, or on the edge. Do so in a low-code, no-code way, and do it extraordinarily fast with resources at a lower skill level than you might need in the old days when you'd have a very technical Java developer, as an example, doing this work. You can kind of use a business analyst now or a junior developer to do this work. And we find that it goes extraordinarily fast and extraordinarily quick. I'll give you one example that we worked on. The country of Gibraltar used to get their services from the British government. So all their web services and stuff were within the British infrastructure. And with Brexit, they had to do a separation, as so many of the countries in Europe had to do relative to working within those systems. And we worked with our partner over there to start to build out a digital platform, a digital catalog associated with this. Brexit, or not Brexit, COVID hits, and there's a process that they had in place relative to their health cards and how you would get health services, that people weren't able to access those cards to get a pass to go to the doctor or get checked or whatever. What we did was we took their manual systems and manual processes that they were had in place around this and got them up and digitized them in less than a week, and were able to actually roll out these services to their constituencies. And so the entirety of the country all of a sudden had access to healthcare, and things kept moving. So the idea of accelerating and doing it in a low-code, no-code way are absolutely kind of the key things we're seeing on a going forward basis.
That's a terrific example, Joe. You know, I want to kind of pivot because there's a good question in the chat that I think is kind of woven its way through all of the conversation today. It's about partnering and partnerships, and how incredibly important are partnerships going to be moving forward. I think someone in the chat is talking about, you know, how can we leverage philanthropic dollars to help solve some of these digital challenges? But I think we're all sitting here also realizing that there's a large federal stimulus, you know, about to come down that's really prioritizing broadband digital access infrastructure. So maybe Bianca, I'll start with you from the city's perspective. You know, how important is it to partner as we move forward to solve some of these challenges? And is the city kind of proactively looking to drive public-private partnerships to really help solve some of these pressing challenges? You know, I think Rob gave a good example of one in Tucson. I think you provided, you know, some great examples that you've done already, but, you know, moving forward, is that really the position of the city, all about kind of partnering to do this right?
Yes, absolutely. We cannot do it alone. And as you know, it's part of the government, right? We have constraints. Our RFP process is very archaic. Just to acquire technology, sometimes just the procurement process lasts for a year or longer. And then implementation, by the time you implement something, is already, right, new technology to take care of that need. So definitely partnership, being able to be more agile. So to support that, Matt actually is trying to help the city understand, right, that technology purchases are different than, let's say, construction purchases. So for that, we're also piloting agile procurement, not just agile methodology for project management, right? So really, we're trying to help the city understand that we have to modernize our processes, and so that we're able to be more successful and help our goal to increase our community engagement or whatever that might be. Other partnerships include an example, just recent example. We partner with the ASU's Center of Cloud Innovation. So we're able to develop our first chatbot solution, again, to increase that, community engagement. And we're actually going to roll that out in the next few months here to our residents as part of a larger initiative of modernizing our 211 CRM system. So Matt is always looking for new partnership to be able to, again, innovate faster, be more agile, and bring that value to our community. Yeah, we definitely can't do it alone. So it's public-private, but also, as you know, university partnerships. Yeah.
Completely. Bianca, it's honestly, I never heard of that. You always hear the discussion around modernization of infrastructure, right? You hear that a lot. But I love that idea around modernization of processes, especially internal processes, because to me, the whole movement behind smart cities and a smart region is how do we change culture to be more innovative, more agile, more lean, to really drive forward and try to keep pace with the technologies, right, that are coming out so rapidly. Rob, so maybe just to spin it over to you quickly on that, part of the goal of the smart region is to go from, a city deployment to scale deployment. How is that going to work? How do you foresee, if you could have a crystal ball, how do you foresee us actually being able to take maybe a Wi-Fi project within one city and actually scale it out across a metropolitan region like Phoenix, like Dallas, and so on?
That's a great question. Obviously a huge challenge. What I see as the core need is to start sharing information, sharing data, breaking down those silos. So if you look across the greater Phoenix region, each of the smaller cities within the region has their own silos of data. They're gathering data about transportation, around traffic incidents, around police incidents, some of these data sets that are sometimes published on open data portals and hopefully will more and more be published. But as you start to look across the region, a lot of it comes down to data and what data is telling us about things like transportation or crime or homelessness or poverty or some of these key needs that the greater region is trying to solve. Also, economic development is a key factor that, Dominic, I know you're very interested in. Where are there new projects for economic development? What companies are coming to the Phoenix region? A lot of that has to do with data. So I would say that there's two types of data that are important. One is the real-time data, what's happening now, what's happening on the streets, what's happening on the intersections, what's happening in the parks. The other one is data aggregated over time. So if you start to look at economic indicators or remote work and school indicators, things like that, you can start to gather data over time and then have the ability to apply machine learning algorithms to become more predictive. If this trend continues, our homeless rate will reach 30% by the year 2030. These sorts of models are very important to understand both what's happening today as well as where we're headed, what problems are going to get worse, what things should we focus on to make better. So as you look at the connected and the value that we have, a lot of it comes down to data and what we're doing with it. And I know ASU is heavily involved in looking at many of these data sets and analyzing and providing insights, which I think is a key value.
So I want to pick up on that theme of data and throw a question to Eric. You're working across jurisdictions. So you're working with various different legislation, regulatory regimes and data. So how are you dealing with that? And then a second part, which picks up on an earlier question, is how important are partnerships for you? And can you talk about some of the partners that you've brought in and currently working with?
Thank you for the great question, Diana. First, I would like to answer about the partnerships. Partnership is extremely important. So how we solve the problem is basically we partner with the city itself, and the will of the city is very, very important. If city government has a will to make their city more inclusive, it's much, much easier that we can work on. And the second part that we focus on as a partnership is a city community. We partner with a lot of organizations, includes like blind organizations or like any kind of organization that related making the city more inclusive. So we basically, first we need to get their support, big support. That's kind of our engine to go on. And the third part is we partner with the local university. And that's extremely important because we need this part, making city inclusive, need a lot of research. And this is a very new area. Smart cities, a lot of smart cities actually don't address this making their inclusive smart city part. They don't know what kind of technology is available. There are not many companies who are working with this specific area. So we are partnering with a lot of universities right now. So those are the 3 key partners that we are working on. And about the data and all the barriers, we actually solve with our partners. Without partners, it's almost impossible that a single startup can solve. So basically, we kind of put our agenda, we want to solve this airport's barrier problems for disabled people and foreigners. And we discuss a lot of solutions together. And sometimes we need to fix the regulation, or we need to bring another technology. There is always challenges, but until now, we solve with the community and our partners. So in this way, it works. So we want to scale up this way in the US and rest of the world.
I'm sure I can find a few good ASU law students and students from the Thunderbird School of Global Management to help you out locally. And Bianca would be an alum of Thunderbird, and Dominic's an alum of the law school. So nothing like hitting up my panel members right now. Dominic, I believe you had a question you wanted to pose.
Yeah, I thought there was some great question in the chat around, bias in data sets, in the potential bias in algorithms. And it's really interesting from a city's perspective. I used to work at the city of Phoenix as well. Is, it's very tough sometimes when you are trying to bring new technologies to mayor and council, and you might not fully understand what goes into algorithms or the data. And the worst thing that a mayor or council wants is to put something out there that then, in 6 months comes back that was completely biased, or, there's a problem in the algorithm, right? Because then that could potentially slow down this entire progress of, driving towards a more digital, equitable community. So Rob, Joe, from your perspectives, how do you mitigate those risks? How are you planning for those as you move forward with data?
Yeah, so I'll start. Rob, let me start, and then I'll kind of throw it to you.
You got it.
I think bias in data and bias in process are really very complex problems to solve. But if you start with strong data fundamentals, good data mastering, understanding where your data is, how it's being used, what volume of it do you have, and Rob alluded to it earlier about the aggregation of data over multiple domains becomes very rich when you start doing these AI and ML analytics and stuff. But if the data is not good to start with, it makes it really difficult to be able to ask questions consistently across the data. Additionally, it makes it difficult to get your AI and ML tools tuned to be able to work through problem sets and to really help you find those solutions. So we very much believe that looking at data hygiene, how do you master your data? How do you create a catalog of data for access? How do you know what compliance data you have where and who's using it? Should they have access to it or not? These kind of things all kind of drive a fundamental leveling of data quality that in the end allows you to start to have hopefully more open and hopefully more consistent data across your application set and across your analytic platforms to start working with. And Rob, please jump into your perspective.
Sure, and I think you nailed it. First thing is accuracy of data. So how you're gathering the data, whether that data is accurate is the first challenge. And if you believe your data is gathered accurately, then you solve the first challenge. The second challenge is what questions are you asking of your data, and what algorithms are you using to try to gain insights from your data? So you have to, first of all, question, is the data itself accurate? And then is the algorithms that are being run free from bias? If anyone's read books about lying with statistics, you can create algorithms that will create a different picture depending on how you create those algorithms. So first you have to trust your data, then you have to trust whoever is creating those AI routines and those algorithms. And that's where I would say universities tend to be a more trusted source for these sorts of analytics. And if you look at, private industry, they may have a bias or they may have an agenda to solve. So you have to question where these analytics are coming from. And hopefully our universities and our government agencies can create the algorithms that hopefully will not have bias in them.
Yeah, and even to amplify on that for a second, I think, as you start looking at people that do this work, and you look at the new generation of data analysts and data scientists and stuff, I think organizations and learning institutions have a very high moral obligation to enable them to not have bias in what they're doing. So they're coming at a problem set from a very different perspective than what they might have in the earlier days. And I think as we move forward and we start looking at these large societal issues we're dealing with, where bias really does have an impact on what we're looking at, the better we are now at really educating and training our data scientists to identify bias and eliminate it in whatever they're doing will certainly help eliminate some of that.
Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit too. So we understand the importance of data, right? So Matt actually started a new data quality program, and we're rolling that out with our police department. So as we know, that's a very sensitive topic for our community, and we want to make sure that we build that, using a valid frameworks. And part of that, we're actually mentioning the partnership with ASU. So they're using that unbiased lens to look our data before we publish it to our community, making sure that it's valid, it's accurate, and meets the standards. So definitely the importance of data is understood throughout the city, especially at the city manager's office. So one of the drivers for us to pursue the WhatWorks city certification, the data certification, I know someone mentioned in the chat, and we applied for that for the first year last year, and actually we were awarded silver certification. So for the first time application, that was a great accomplishment again, because our leadership sees the need to be more transparent and to really be able to use the data in very effective ways. So we're very, very grateful that working with Bloomberg, that we were able to make those assessments and be able to showcase that the city is very forward thinking, and we actually got 100% rating for the open data effort. So very transparent as a city. So wanted to highlight that as well.
That's fantastic. It makes me realize that I should go back to ASU and train as a data scientist, because I'm not sure like a law professor has got the same longevity associated with it these days. So we are rapidly coming to the end of our session. And so I would love to turn to all four of you and ask you, what does the next 6 months look like in terms of your organization, your priorities, and how you're going to continue to pivot? And I'll start with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, Di, who were you asking for?
I was asking you.
No
pressure. Okay, I was right, okay. Then, I think when we look at the next 6 months, obviously, as we look at the rollout of the virus shots and all those that are happening, and people start to reintegrate back to work, it's going to be a significant challenge for everyone in terms of figuring out what really happens from a going forward remote from work perspective. But in the end, the situation that exists is legacy debt is really holding back innovation. People are having to move towards these new modern platforms, whether they be cloud or hybrid cloud, and edge is just going to become prevalent more and more as we go forward. So a lot of our focus right now is how do we help our customers manage that legacy debt and put them on a path that they can get to these modern platforms, in the end becoming more agile and more resilient in these next 6 months. I think, and we're seeing with universities now coming back into the spring semester, while I was just writing a little bit of thing on this morning, when we think of how long we've been in this, which is less than a year, the amount of work we've done collectively, vendors, universities, cities, companies, whatever, is astounding. and it's a paradigm shift. And the idea of being agile and resilient and fast and responsive become absolutely critical components going forward. And Boomi as an integration platform at low code, no code is absolutely focused on that with our customers.
Thank you. So I'm going to throw that same question to Eric and then Bianca and Rob.
Thank you. You know, because of the COVID-19, every cities in every places, non-face-to-face infrastructure is becoming extremely important. And we think that because of the disabilities that individuals have, there should be no discrimination to access any kind of public infrastructures. So in 6 months, we will keep working on our projects with school, cities and organizations, collaborating with those partners. We find problems in each infrastructures, and if we find any kind of discriminations or any kind of problems to access public information, we will bring our solutions to there and then make cities and infrastructures more inclusive. That's our plan.
Okay. So I'm going to speak on behalf of Matt again. So he was able to use the COVID-19 crisis as an opportunity to do things that are normally difficult. I mentioned being more agile, right, securing additional funding to support digitalization of our processes and our services. So I think one challenge for the city is to really change those funding practices as a result of the pandemic. So because our residents expect more from us as a city. So the challenge now is going to be ensuring that our organization initiatives align with digital business acceleration and reallocating this funding to really support innovation, making sure that our businesses are also part of that they take ownership in IT projects, right? They understand that they have a key role to play in implementation and that value add. I think as been mentioned before, we learned that there's a need to change our operating models. So we need to have greater use of digital channels to reach our residents. So that's one part of our effort, and we're going to increase that over the next 6 months. So that includes the new mobile app, 211 mobile app, and also our capabilities to communicate to residents using text messages, which we haven't done previously. Also mentioned was the faster rate of adoption of new services and products, because our community is expecting that now. That digital engagement is only going to be amplified. And then another priority, again, will be to make sure that we can continue to accelerate, because it makes business sense, right? Our customers and residents have shifted their activity online during the lockdown, and now I think the shift is only going to increase and not reverse this year. So again, we have to look at emerging technologies, as Joe and everyone here mentioned, digital workplace, cloud services and solutions, definitely cyber and information security, right? We want to make sure that we have the secure city, edge computing, process automation, BI and data, and digital platforms, and of course, customer engagement. So that's definitely going to be, those are going to be challenges that we will have to meet the next 6 months.
I got one minute, right? All right, so I was actually going to talk about federal stimulus before Dominic even put it up there. I think the next 6 months are going to be driven a lot by the new stimulus package and the funding that is targeted toward expansion of broadband, for transportation, for airports, for transportation infrastructure. So we're going to see a lot of projects that are going to be driven by the new federal stimulus package and new innovations that hopefully will result.
Fantastic. Well, we are very quickly coming to time. It's amazing how 45 minutes flies. I just want to say, I think it's wonderful that we're talking about this very topic on day one of a Smart Cities Summit. So often this is a topic that is forgotten about or pushed out to 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. So having this front and center is something I'm really excited about, and it's been wonderful having this conversation. I want to also give a shout out to Dominic, who was here but has disappeared. His leadership at UTO has allowed many of these partnerships to exist. And I think I can speak for ASU when I say I'm looking forward to working with all of you going forward. I also want to give a shout out to Eric Johnson, who is my co-director for the Centre for Smart Cities and Regions, and for the work that he has been doing and his leadership at ASU. So thank you, Eric, for joining us. And on that, I'm handing back to Dominic.
No, thanks, Di. Thanks everyone again for joining us. Maybe just to close out with some of the key takeaways. The key takeaway I really think here is, as Rob mentioned, there's going to be some opportunities. We can either dwell on challenges or we can thrive on opportunities. And I think throughout this entire conversation, the one thing that really shone through was the need to really understand how to collaborate in the future. Bianca, you listed off, I think, a series of initiatives or objectives that the city of Phoenix is looking to execute on in the next 6 months to a year. But guess what? The school district is probably looking to do pretty much the same objectives. The community college district is probably looking to do the same thing. So how can we align objectives? I think you used that word so brilliantly, together to really collaborate and drive impact at scale in the future, and leverage the partnerships like Dell Technologies, like Boomi, like Eric, bringing his new technology into the greater Phoenix region, and like the university, to really work together, solve these challenges, not in silos, but across sectors, across industries, to make an impact for really the people that need it the most, and finally, hopefully, begin to close that digital divide. So thank you again. This has been fantastic. Hope to see all of you in further sessions. And feel free to always reach out to Di or myself if you need to contact any of our panelists or find any other information. But thank you again. It was great seeing everyone.